Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank Steve Quayle for posting up my interview with Celeste Bishop Solum about how the U.S. government anticipates food shortages sweeping through our nation, and a glimpse at the precious metals pricing. It's such a climate emergency. Why did just 3 of the world's top 10 banks sign the UN climate goal commitment? World's leading greenhouse gas emitter, China, tapping out of global climate strike. Protests were not authorized in the country, although they have their own methods. Chinese young people prefer tree planting and other activities versus street protests. And a glimpse into the past, the last time we were lectured by teenagers, and also how teenagers try to dictate governmental policies. The Cultural Revolution in China. And how prepared are you for emergencies? My Patriot Supply, long-term food storage, the 2-week grab-and-go food crate, or the 4-week food supply. The link's in the description box below. And it's a way to support the Adapt 2030 channel. We've been led to believe it's the biggest climate emergency runaway extinction level event ever. But just 3 of the world's top 10 banks signed the UN climate goals commitment. Now, what's interesting here is this coalition of 130 global financial firms are smaller than the world's top 10 biggest banks. Now, they term this the Principles for Responsibility Banking Pledge. In total, they've accrued $47 trillion in assets. That's not even half of what the Green Deal would be just for the United States alone. And I love the bottom paragraph. Other banks are interested in it, but they still have to agree and then map out plans by 2023. That's real interesting because that 2023 year is the same year I anticipate massive global food shortages. So keep that on your calendar, 2023 and 2024 harvest season. Thanks to Steve Quayle for publishing Year Zero, a convulsive time on our planet, with Celeste Bishop Solum. A really good blueprint on how the U.S. government foresees food shortages moving through the planet and how they're now terming it in their publications Year Zero. So keep your eyes out for the new lexicon change. Year Zero is like patient zero. They're expecting this year to be the first year with crop losses, and then from this point forward, less and less food. In such climate emergency, China with 30% of all emissions globally, even when you add that up, you have to take the United States, the EU, India, parts of Russia, and China still emits more than all of that. Interesting factoid how nobody questions what China's emitting, yet one cow farts in the United States and we need to revamp the entire regulation and taxing system. And I found this interesting schematic here, global greenhouse emissions by economic sector. I like how that agriculture, which means our food, consumes just a quarter of all the energy input in. But then we have electricity, transportation, and industry. These are things I'm a fan of because I like heat and light at night because it makes me safer. I like to eat every day, so I'm a fan of agriculture. Transportation, do you want to walk 20 miles? I personally don't. And industry, thank you. This microphone I'm broadcasting into would not be possible without industry. Here off Breitbart, world's leading greenhouse gas emitter, China, taps out of global climate strike. Again, all eyes are not on China because the biggest emitters cannot be judged. Isn't that interesting how it works? Plus, protests were not authorized in the country. Activists spanning 150 countries participated in the global climate strike, except China. But it's interesting how this Guardian article came out and quoted Zheng Xiaowen that the Chinese youth have their own methods. So I started digging into that thinking, what are their own methods? And here it is. South China Morning Post. Chinese young people prefer tree planting and other activities to street protests. Also, if you're looking for information on Hong Kong, this is the #1 source. They go minute by minute during the protests, during the weekends. And also, if there's a weekly blockade or some kind of craziness going on in this city, they follow it as well. South China Morning Post. Everything's linked in the description box below. And since we are on the China theme here, the last time that teenagers were put in control of economy, policy, politics, and government, we saw what the result was. The Cultural Revolution. This is a teacher here that didn't want to kowtow to the narrative. They were removed. Here we go, 2.0. And the 10 countries with the largest reductions and increases in CO2 emissions by millions of tons from 2017. I could not find a later date for this type of charting here. The U.S. has reduced the most out of anybody, yet why is all the pressure on us to reduce our economy when you look at the bottom here with the increases? Ooh, nobody wants to talk about China, India, Turkey, or the EU, Iran, Indonesia, Spain, Canada, Russia, or South Korea. Shh. It's inconvenient. They might have to shrink their economies. Those are the growth engines of our planet. Can't stop economy, can't stop industry. It's all a facade. My co-author Bill Porter and myself talk about these very same issues in Climate Revolution, the Grand Solar Minimum, Understand, Prepare, Adapt, and Thrive. The link's in the description box below, and it's another way to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.